Okay, this meeting is called to order for the Transportation Advisory Committee. Lisa, would you call the roll, please?
Good evening. All right, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Batty, present. Mr. Phil Metzger,
Here.
Mr. Jessic, Mr. Gary Johnson,
Here.
Mr. LaSalle,
Here.
Mr. McEnroe,
Here.
Mr. Steve Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Mahoney.
Here. Okay, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes of November 18th, 2014. Does anybody have any corrections, additions? I have a couple myself here. Page 3, about halfway down, a little better than halfway down, Mr. Gifford noted that the chief of police commented that most accidents are that should be rear end collisions. And the next paragraph, the same thing. Read should show as rear accidents.
Just those two?
Just those two, that's all I had.
Lisa. Yeah, me present, I was not.
Okay, I'll have a motion to approve those minutes.
I move approve the minutes as corrected.
I'll second it.
Okay, shall we call for a vote? Anybody for aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to abstain since I wasn't a member of the committee
Correct.
during those meetings.
Okay.
I also choose to abstain for the same reason.
Okay. The minutes of December 16th, 2014. Does anybody have any additions, corrections? Okay, I'll call for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. I'll call for a vote. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
I figured those would come along. At this time, I'm going to move something up in our agenda. In regards to introduction of the new TAC members, I wanted to have them introduced first off here so we don't know for sure who their faces were and if they'd like to say anything to us. So, Thomas Batty, do you like Tom or Thomas?
Thomas, fine.
Thomas, and is it Batty or Beatty?
Batty.
Batty, okay. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thanks for applying in the first place.
Ah, glad to be here.
Yeah. And then Gary Johnson, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I don't have any other way to say your name, I don't think.
And I bared my soul during the interview, so
Yeah.
everybody knows all about me.
Okay, well, welcome aboard. We appreciate you attending a few of the meetings before your application. Are there any citizen comments this evening? Doesn't look like any. Okay. Our next agenda item, new business discussion, it looks like Scott Archer had another meeting to go to.
Correct. Yeah, he's hoping to attend in
So-
February.
The discussion on Glen Oak and Filbert Run Parks will be forwarded to another meeting. So item 5B, Carnegie Library Expansion Project presentation.
Yes. Joan?
Oh, okay, you got it. Thank you.
This button here, just push it over.
All right. Okay, hello. Thanks for having us here, or me here. I'm Joan Jasper with Scott Edwards Architecture. I am the project architect for the project. Maureen Cole is not feeling well this evening. She would really tried to attend, but just wasn't up to it. So what I'd like to do is just give you guys an overview and where we are to date. So I don't know if you guys have been following at all the progress on the library. All right, so we'd been working on it pretty hard since the bond measure passed in May. We have updated, all our surveys, reports, which include the traffic impact analysis, soils, as-built, and arborist report that needs to go into land use. Kind of at the same time, we started looking at different options, where the building could go, whether it could go underground, above ground, to the back, to the side, and all of this time keeping the city commissioners, historic review board, library board, and community members abreast of what we were proposing and getting their input. So that took us through kind of November, and on November 12th, City Commission approved us moving forward with a two-story library scheme that went directly behind the library, which preserves the most land for the park, and they felt was the most subordinate to the existing library, which were two of the concerns that all the parties were really interested in. And so from there, we've really taken it, and you'll see the presentation that we're showing today is kind of the latest and greatest. We showed it to the city commissioners on the 13th, and with the request that when we meet with them tomorrow night on the 21st, they approve us to move forward with design development. All right. So here is the site plan as it stands right now. I haven't used this clicker before. Lisa, is that the? There we go. So here's the existing Carnegie, existing spray park here, with the two-story addition here off the back along Jefferson.
Just so you know, they can't see
We
it
can't
because they're
see it.
looking at it on the screen. So maybe Lisa, here I'll man it up. While Lisa's keeping notes.
While he's doing that, may I point out that you've got 6th and 7th Streets reversed on the site plan?
Yeah, I think
We
that.
surely do. Thank you. You're the first one that's noticed
Good
that. Thank you.
I thought that had been pointed out at the last commission meeting.
Nope, I don't think so. All right. Okay. So there's the new addition. So kind of as a result of the addition being behind the library and the ability of the library to able to staff a two-story library, we have put the entry central between the existing library and the new library in what we're calling the connector or the hyphen.
Did I do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Give them a preview. For some reason, let's see.
Got to keep him under control, you know.
I know.
I'm trying to get to the central. This arrow's not loving me
Okay.
too much. Actually, I thought I heard you could. You try that cursor. Does that have a cursor on it as well? It does. So do you see that on your screen?
There it is.
Yeah,
Yep,
Is that you doing that?
it's in the bottom.
Oh, there it is.
I
yeah,
don't.
she's doing
It's
it.
down at the bottom.
John, that mouse will transmit to her position. If you want to give her that mouse, she can.
I'm not touching it. So
She's doing it.
I think I just want to.
It's there at the
Yeah,
bottom.
but
But that doesn't seem to be working.
It's at the bottom.
I don't see. I don't see
That's-
it.
Well, it's gone now. You had it.
I think it does on that one, but I'm not sure. I've not used it. So, okay, let's just go forward, and I'll try to.
There it is.
That's me.
That's-
That's me.
That's
So
John.
that's the entrance right there, right?
Yes, both from from 6th Street, which we're calling 7th, and 7th Street, which we're calling 6th. All right, so the main entry is off of 6th, but we are we're still kind of embracing the ideas. It's still a building, in the park. It's accessed from all four corners, and even off of 7th Street. There is an entrance off the main path with kind of a seating area, yes, and then a seating area that kind of lands in the landscape.
Is the existing entrance still open?
The existing entry will be a minor entry. We are going to replace the stairs with safer, code-conforming stairs that historically match. And yes, the library staff is dedicated to creating an entry point at that spot if you so choose. But it will not be the main entry. Local history, periodicals, etc. will be located in the existing Carnegie Reading Room. So it will be a very active spot, and you'll see that in some of the future slides. All right. So here's the ground floor plan. As you can see, let me try. Okay, John, let's see. Do you think is that?
What do you want to go to?
Well, I was just seeing if I can. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay there, but I'm trying to see if I can find the mouse function. I tell you, I'll use the pointer, and that'll show you where to go with the mouse. So again, here's the main entry here off of 6th Street here. Secondary entry off of 7th, that path that kind of curves here. Central information area for both the main library and children's here. Stair up. Kind of the book return is accessed through the vestibule there with the RFID book sorter here, technology, and then reference, local history, periodicals, etc. in the main Carnegie. So the yellow section is the children's, which is about 2 times the size that it is now, and what has been programmed for by the library. Community room here with kitchen, studio, AV area here, restroom, and elevator core. And the way this has been set up is that the community room can be closed off after hours, along with the restrooms, and have direct access. So it can be closed off after night, after evening hours, and rented out or used for community without affecting the rest of the library.
So you close it right here, right?
Uh-huh. Okay. And then the second floor, you're kind of seeing the main atrium. This is open to below. It looks down and into the Carnegie, to the sides of the Carnegie, with coming up with nonfiction and fiction here, media and teens area here, and then some supporting conference, studio, and administrative spaces off the back.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
The current children's is in the basement of the Carnegie. What's going to be in the basement of the Carnegie?
What's going to be in the basement will be all staff, so that's where all the staff facilities are going. Their break room, offices, other preparation room, as well as storage and mechanical.
Thank you.
There's no entrance off of the Jefferson side, right?
No, it's egress only. And right now, it's just connecting the second floor egress and not first floor egress, because the grade back there is probably about 8 feet above the lower level, which makes it about 8 feet below the upper level. So you're kind of right smack dab in the middle.
What's the capacity for your community facilities?
I think that's a good question. I think around 75.
75 people?
Mm-hmm. If it was auditorium seating.
Sort of like this?
It's probably from here to the back wall, maybe with a little bit of the vestibule in there.
So it's bigger?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And right now, again, we haven't, we're really in schematic phase, but we've talked about, dividing this off so you could have 2 rooms at once, etc. So we'll be looking at developing more of that.
The reason I ask that is because that would sort of coincide with the amount of off-street parking you would complement that room would provide for.
Right,
and-
right, for special events, something
Yeah,
like that,
because
yes.
that would be a concentrated use of that room, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on the floor plans at all, or? Okay. So this is a view from 7th Street, which actually is 7th and John Adams. This is kind of the iconic, we call this the iconic view, with the big tree canopies as you're going west to east. With the main Carnegie here, and then what you would see at the addition in the back. Great care to kind of preserve the existing landscaping, existing approach to the Carnegie. And this is the view from John Adams and 6th.
Missing the water fountain.
Pardon me?
You're missing the water fountain
It's the water fountains right there. Oh, well, yeah, okay.
between the corner and the bicycle.
Yes, yes.
Oh, the drinking fountain?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's going away.
But that's a present memorial to a past public works director.
Really?
Really? It says so right on it.
Watch out, John.
That's a very important spot. Please note that for the record, that we need to make sure that is preserved till the end of time.
Potentially relocated?
That's for the new statue.
We'll get something bigger and better for
Okay.
John.
I've got a better spot for the other Public Works Director monument. I saw it on the other side of the
For Henry.
So this view too, one of the things that I might have glossed over is in the site plan design, because our entry is, between the Carnegie and the addition, we're really trying to create a library plaza, kind of utilizing and enhancing the existing spray park so that it really becomes a civic plaza, and with new seat walls, landscaping around it, and different amenities. We're also opening up the wall along 6th so that in the non-warm summer months, the plaza, the spray park can still be a part of the plaza so that you can walk through it and you don't have to walk around it. We've spent an awful lot of time on what happens to the existing playground, and with the library going off the back and preserving the spray park, it would be right in the entryway. So we have relocated that to the east and south of the library. Here's the spray park here. Created these civic steps areas where people can congregate, read the book they just checked out, or finish the book just before they check it in, and a kind of a covered area, but really seeing this as a kind of a public gathering place, and really making it active through the use of the spray park and the playground. The play equipment as it currently stands does not meet code. So we are creating new play equipment to code in the spirit of the existing equipment.
Is there just out of curiosity, is there going to need to be a retaining wall along Jefferson on the back of that play area?
We have it as a seat wall right now, and so it looks like it's just about seating height,
Okay.
and then we'll take the rest up with planting.
You had a book drop in that last picture.
Uh-huh.
Will you be able to drop it from your car, or do you have to get out of the car?
You will have to get out of the car unless you have a really, really long arm.
Is there a particular reason why you don't want to be able to drop it from the car?
Well, it would be in the public right of way, and or it would take out of the park. I mean, it's been a lot that's decided. I think it would be on the passenger side as well.
Yeah.
So it's really probably a safety and space concern. Because parking,
Yeah, those are going to be ADA parking or
ADA
disability
and
parking
15
at the
minute.
location.
So we're
So that's one
showing
more.
we're showing 4 ADA accessible spaces there, which has come up almost in every community meeting and user meeting, as well as 3 15-minute drop-offs. So you can go in, pick up your book on hold, or drop your book off. But we do not have a drive-up book drop. However, it's a lot closer to the street than the existing one.
That's progress.
Excuse me, John, those drop boxes are significant in the sense that I think I know what John's getting at, is that West Lynn's got their drop box right as part of the building, and they've got the drop box only parking. But I mean, that parking space over there, that park hole, it is an obstacle course, I'm telling you, and with mothers and their kids going back and forth. That's a real public safety factor. And if whatever you can do to facilitate dropping off those books in a safe manner rather than somebody, it's going to take 15 minutes unless you're on foot, just to pull up, get out of your car, make sure the kids are okay. Drop your book. I think that if you could win that battle there, you've pulled a real coup there, because that is going to affect traffic, that drop box. Just pulling up to the curb or finding a place to park.
And people double parking.
Yeah. Really.
That might be more of an enforcement. I mean, we don't have any on-site parking.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can take into advisement, but everybody has wanted, a book drop, closer to the street than what exists now. Right now, it's kind of right over in there.
One of the things that Moreno and I have talked about is the idea of remote book drop locations that requires some staff time to monitor those, empty those, especially if they're not within walking distance. It's even more problematic. But in an effort to try to minimize trips, that may be an option. And I think placement of this is key. I think what you're hearing from this group is, that may not be, especially if you're planning to have ADA parking right there, that may not be, that shouldn't be the only location adjacent, right? There may be other locations. On this slide here, I'm guessing, is the topography on the back side of the building, is that accurately shown? I mean, is there going to be some kind of a wall back there that, it almost looks like there's another structure back there.
Nope, I don't have that one
On the
here.
last page site plan, you can see it a little better, but it needs some development because you've got about a 4 or 5% slope back there. And if you want to make a flat area in there, you're going to have 3-sided retaining wall or something to make it flat.
I mean,
So these are schematic. I get that. I'm just wondering that area is probably not an accurate representation of what we're going to end up seeing.
we've depressed it a little bit, and potentially will flatten it. Don't know. I mean, because there is a crown right there in that one corner. We're putting in new surface for the play area. It'll be a soft turf, artificial turf. But the idea is that we have, and then maybe it's a stepped retaining wall. We're trying to make the play area as large as possible, because that equipment that we're replacing in Spirit has a pretty good size clearance because they're tall. So we might have to do a step series, or a planter right there by the sidewalk to make that up. But yes, and these are schematic. So
Have you checked with the trash company about the pickup point for the trash?
yes,
Okay.
yes, and that's really no different than what it is now.
Well, yeah, except that they can roll it over to the dumps, to the truck and hoist it in mechanically. Here, where it is now, you got to roll it across the parking strip and out into the street to pick it up.
I think they've completely changed the garbage and recycle location from what you're showing in one of those plans.
Oh, okay.
What about,
That's what I heard anyway.
I don't believe so, if this is the latest. Let me just quickly go back. So we're showing it right here.
Yeah. And in order to get that roll cart out,
Uh-huh.
it's got to go across the parking strip and out in the street so the truck can pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Well, that will be part of the library staff. They'll stack it right here in the planning strip, just like you normally do on trash day. You'll
No,
put it right here.
That's a dumpster type dumper.
You don't use a dumpster type dumper. They don't.
Okay.
So we can get, I've got one recycling canister in there, and then I can get 6 large residential green
Pickups.
and blue cans. They generate more recycling than they do trash.
Good.
So, and because we have no on-site parking, we do not have to have an on-site loading. So, and we had looked at this area kind of with a loading, truck loading, and kind of a concrete, and decided that it wasn't needed.
Yeah, about the only loading I know of they get is the inter-library truck that comes
And that
by once a
happens.
day.
That happens before they're open, and that will comply with the 15-minute parking.
Yeah, that's what the change that I think they made. That before that was a drive-in, driveway, and it was
Yeah, kind of earlier on, and then we realized that it was,
Worthless.
yeah, pretty much.
is there any way to keep kids from using those steps to jump off of skateboards?
We will put,
Spikes.
On, jumping the steps?
yeah, we can, well, on the steps,
At Oregon City High School, the old high school, they wouldn't put grooves down in the bottom.
well,
of
we've
this,
got,
And they came
yeah,
back and cemented over the skateboarders.
because I think, I have to double check this in code, but I believe we have to have handrails like every 15 feet, and probably what we'll do is, and the names, we just put the cleats on there, and then that keeps them from railing. So if you put a bump or a cleat, both on say this bench here or that bench there, then they can't
Well,
they can't grind.
I worked at the community college, and the kids with their bicycles used to jump off the steps, and they'd break the ends of the steps,
Okay.
because they.
Because they were jumping from the top landing and
And then
catching the nose of the tread as they went down.
Yeah, one parent tried to sue the college because the kid was jumping.
Yeah.
Okay.
My particular perspective from this is not so much the design of the facility, because I know it's been beaten to death.
Yeah, and you can tell me to.
Well, I'm
keep
not
moving
interested
forward.
so much in that. What I'm interested in is the traffic pattern around the site and how it's going to affect the neighborhood and maneuvering onto 7th and the parking pattern. And you said you approached it from the standpoint of no on-site parking, which leads to off-street parking, I presume. And from what I've seen, you've addressed that. But what's your design philosophy regarding this facility
Well-
at that particular site?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons we, the site didn't have really any on-site parking before. It's, it's on the National Register of Historic Places. Everybody loves the park. Everybody loves the Carnegie, and we're adding 2.5 times the square footage to it, which was approved. And we had the original TIA, transportation impact analysis, which showed that there was enough on-street parking to accommodate, and then we updated that, and it proved, to say the same thing, that there's adequate on-street parking for the added traffic. Now, that being said, the library has purchased the lot, the existing parking lot at 7th and Jefferson. So long-term business and staff parking will park there. It's probably not your most ideal parking lot, so it's really aimed at long-term people who park there and kind of stay there the day. That gets those cars, as well as the Maureen is negotiating with the existing businesses too, because they don't need all the spaces, but they're trying to get kind of the long-term parking off. And then we get, so that's 17, we get 28 on the 3 sides by just striping, and signing to 2 hours only. And then they are in the process to make our parking count without using the 25% reduction, which I think we could make an argument for. They're trying to get 8 designated spaces at the fire station, and Ermiting are here, and then just catty corner at Pioneer Center. And there's been talk with city commissioners about improving the public lot signage, because most people don't even know that those are public lots and that they are available for library parking. We looked at, potentially making Jefferson and 6th one way. We could do diagonal parking, and, with all the improvements, we didn't gain but maybe 2 spaces, and then you disrupt kind of the traffic flow. So we're really kind of taking all of it into consideration. I mean, in the DKS with the traffic impact analysis, we sat down with McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. They kind of explained a lot of the terms that they weren't familiar with, but also in talking with them, they branched out and took in a lot more data, kind of deeper into the neighborhood and at different intersections to really feel like they covered their bases. And then they also took a very conservative approach to what percentage of on-street parking would be available.
Well, I think, John, that one of the biggest concerns will be that you have a much nicer facility, and you'll have more things going on there, and so there will be possibly a dramatic increase in the parking needs, and there's nothing we can do about it at this stage because it's too far along.
There's also...
And so I think that it's a moot point to discuss the parking situation now.
Also, there's an existing business across Jefferson from the library that uses about 5 spaces all day long. That's not reflected in the traffic analysis report.
Well, but they did...
They're going to be competing for the spaces that you're counting for the library, is the point.
But they did an on-site and then a projection, which...
Right. But they didn't consider the doctor's office across the street in this report.
What I've heard from Maureen, and because I think that's come up as well at the commission level, is those businesses on the other side of Jefferson. I think there's a dentist office and a couple other, I don't know.
The main one I'm
service
concerned about is
offices.
the psychiatrist's office.
And she talked about the idea of designating those during key hours, during their key business hours, available for businesses for that business. How we would do that on the public right of way remains to be seen, but we're still talking about that for sure. So I don't think we've missed an opportunity, Bob. I mean, unless you're talking structured parking, you probably missed that opportunity. But there's, I think the project team and city staff are trying to meet pretty regularly to figure out, are there alternative locations? Is there signage to the existing lots that make a lot of sense? And
well, I think that'll help a lot as additional signage. Yeah, John?
Yeah, in the traffic report that you have there on page 16, it lays out the existing peak parking and what's available. So, I mean, if you look at the bottom line, and they have a capacity of 153 based on the diagram above it. currently the average occupancy is 68, so they adding, you got 85 that are available, and that's not including this parking lot that you.
Right.
Right,
So I
and-
think going to that, it answers a lot of the questions.
It should very well, yeah.
Because I mean, what they did is they went through and analyzed, what percentage were used, unused currently, which would take into account the businesses surrounding, and then did the projection when the library is complete, and that's how they came about coming up with saying that there was adequate parking.
Is there any other issues in relation to the Transportation Advisory Committee that you have in your presentation? We'll have to move along.
Oh, no, not at all. We were just here, I mean,
Do you have any expected groundbreaking date?
yes, we do. We should break ground this summer, 2015. We're hoping in July, 1st of August, and we will be complete September 16th. So, no, this was really, an overview and to give you guys a chance, to ask any questions and just bring you up to where we are. We met with Public Works. We're doing a lot of fee in lieu. I think for the pedestrian street that's been designated on John Adams. We're trying to do everything we can for pedestrian vehicular safety. I think it was a request by Public Works that there be a left turn lane onto John Adams from 7th.
Well, actually, there's a provision in the transportation system plan for as you're coming down the hill, to put a left turn pocket that would allow you to turn on John Adams. The question is whether or not that's really needed, and if it is needed, as you're moving up John Adams, it requires some removal of parking in front of the fire station. And so we really want to scrutinize that need as to whether or not we really need that, because then losing more parking is yet another problem. So there's a balance. Do we need the turn pocket? And if we do so, then we're going to have to lose some parking to get there. So that's important. I guess the other thing is that from your perspective, there's walking provisions that we need to think about, and the limits at which we might suggest improvements. There's on John Adams, there's that's designated as a family-friendly route. So if you remember from our transportation system plan, we've been talking about methods for improving that so that bicyclists in particular feel safer in that area. And so it's not like it's only one block that we're talking about, but we've talked at a staff level about requiring the library to add sharrows on that straight, add good signage on either end, on near 5th and near 7th, so that as a driver you kind of are understanding through the signage that maybe you're in a little different zone. So bicycle traffic is something to consider. And you also have provisions for covered and uncovered bike parking, right? So I don't remember how many spots that was. But
and we're evaluating that by code. We need 11. Right now we're showing 12, kind of split between the park and the library. And I think by code 30% has to be covered. We'll probably do at least 50. So
the other thing that's a little bit unusual, John, sorry, and I just want to finish my thoughts. We don't have other locations other than on Main Street. We made some provisions for on-street handicap parking, but they're really not, quote, ADA parking, right? They're painted and striped on the public right-of-way. In this case here, we're working with the design team to come up with a plan that allows for 3 or 4 ADA spots on the public right-of-way. So, we don't allow that for churches, for instance. We require that to be on site. So this will be one of those things that we'll have to have findings to get us there, so that we're not facing that same request. Although maybe we should. I don't know. Maybe that's maybe that's a design standard that should change. I don't really have a good, strong opinion on that right now. But right now, for this project, we're kind of contemplating, what does that mean? We're approving ADA parking in a public right-of-way. In this case, it makes sense because there's really no on-parking option, on-street, off-street parking options, so.
When I was actually doing a studio where I sat and drew and worked and stuff like that in the library, and a woman in a wheelchair, she'd been, I don't know, she had a spinal accident or something. She parks over at the fire station, comes across 7th and John Adams, then over to 6th, and then down the ramp, and it was really rainy, and, that really kind of cold rain, and we actually, helped her out, because that ramp, even the existing ramp, gets really icy or slick. And so that's what we're trying to do, ADA compliant. We're not even sure where it lands because we're required, to have federal ADA. But right now, as it stands, you have your ADA parking, then a 5-foot aisle on the pedestrian side so you're not getting out in traffic, and then and the sidewalk's depressed to the street level at that point. And that's what we're proposing and working with Public Works right now. So it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's...
And then Martin's working on our PMUF plan that would coincide with, they're going to have to do some utility improvements out in the street and probably a lot of curb replacement, curbs and sidewalks. So I think the plan is once they're done, then we would move
they'll
in.
finish construction in the spring of 2017, and that's typically when we're putting out the bid for our summer PMUF work, using the pavement maintenance utility fee. So we're trying to look at some synergy and some value engineering where we wouldn't require the library project to take on as much financial burden for the road improvements, and we kind of offset either with them paying some fee in lieu or the difference between doing a trench repair versus doing a full half street improvement into the project. And then through our PMUF, we get a lot more economy of scale for materials. And those roads, I'm actually looking them up right now, they are all programmed for a 2-inch mill and 2-inch inlet for all the roads surrounding the library. So you can basically get all new streets outside of 7th surrounding the facility, and they're finishing structure construction in the spring. We come in August, do the roads. Hopefully we don't jack anything up. And then by fall of that year, you've got a brand new city block.
We're looking at even like street lighting, kind of looking at lighting that fits the Carnegie Park versus, kind of the Cobra Head lighting. So there's a city and the A&E team are working pretty closely together to try to make everybody happy.
Don?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions on page 3, under other transportation facilities. You do a summary of the current TriMet routes. John or Martin, is TriMet changing some of those bus routes in town after the light rail's in? Because they've been having lots of meetings about bus routes. Now maybe these remain the same, I don't know.
Yeah, the routes are proposed to stay the same. It's the frequency of service on, I believe it's the 33 line, is going to increase, but the stops and the routes are not projected for altering.
And then on page 4, the last column, risks and PM peak, the LOS, there's a couple there, like a F and a D. Maybe staff could address the F. There may be a note in the text there on it too.
What the F and D stand for?
Yeah, I think
It's a rating, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this group is pretty familiar with the level of service ratings, but there's a note that I read on this one that said it should be noted that the analysis for 7th Street to Jackson intersection does not account for vehicle platooning created at the signal at 7th and Monroe. So the reason why it shows at a level of service F is because it platoons. So in other words, when cars stack up, they might stack up into that intersection, and in reality, it functions much better than that. So that's what I read out of that one level of service F. They specifically mentioned 7th and Jackson. They didn't mention the D at 7th and Moala. So I think that's probably similar.
And they don't do morning peak because the library isn't open then? I was wondering why. Is that it? Okay. They just did afternoon peak on everything, so I was guessing.
Well, I
it's
think
because
that's
the library.
that's the higher peak hour.
Okay.
We all know that John Adams in 7th gets blocked almost all day.
It can. Yeah, gets pretty busy. Usually usually the cars allow for through traffic.
Yeah, but that can be problematic too. I've managed to get myself nailed at that intersection going through the line like that.
I think, for me, I look at this and it seems as though what we have missed is there's been a lot of debate about where's the best location for the library, and I think the community consensus is this is the right one. The challenge is it's in a neighborhood with established curb lines, and it's on a footprint that doesn't really support additional on-street or off-street parking. So how do we mitigate that? And I think some of that's kind of a balance between a new the new trend for people walking and biking a little bit more. There's that piece which will help. There's this smaller car idea, that we seem to see happening from time to time. Martin just bought a Mini Cooper, for God's sake. So
Let's rephrase that. My wife just.
Okay, you didn't make that clear.
Still drives.
Is it pink?
And you're working to make the payments.
Actually.
Mini Coopers are good.
So I mean, there's all those kinds of things. Plus, I think things like signage and safer corridors. I mean, for me, it's like, how do we mitigate so that people that maybe live 4 blocks away, that want to get to the library on an evening like tonight when it's still early enough but it's dark out. So should we be looking at conditioning this library street lighting improvements to make it a little safer to get there? Is there another
Yet you're bordered by residential, and they're not going to want to be. They're not going to be bothered by more street lighting.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. I wouldn't jump to that conclusion.
I would lead a walk after this meeting if anybody's interested. I'm going home that way.
That's right. So, I think those are the kind of things that this group can make a difference on. And what I've forgotten is the timeline for this. You're in the land use approval timeline.
We are submitting to the Land Use and Historic Design Review Friday. And we are continuing with documents. So we will be well into documents to meet the July 1. And we'll probably be doing a fast track too to take advantage of some better bid times. We might be doing a site package. We have a contractor on board, but we are breaking ground around July 1. I guess we could break ground as early as April, and then ready to be open in September 16th.
Those are good dates. And maybe Martin, you remember, I don't remember. I know we had a pre-application meeting. And you're in the land use approval process. Mm-hmm. So typically what it's good to have is if we don't have conditions of approval and land use approval, then oftentimes we have a hard time getting those things accomplished, right? If we don't tell the developer what you got to do by the end of that land use period, then he's going to look back to say, then you didn't tell me I had to do that, and I don't have to do that. And it'd be nice to get in front of this land use approval process with thoughts that you have. So maybe the best thing to do would be for you to just know that process is moving forward. And I think if you want to, Bob, I don't know if you want people to communicate with you via email, or maybe Lisa and I, or Martin, a staff and the chair, and we can assemble something, because I'm worried about the timeline. I don't know if we're going to hit that by our next meeting. We meet monthly, and I just don't know tonight whether.
Well, it's 120 days. I can't remember. And that's why we're here, to kind of show you what we've got and to bring concerns. Up to the table. Mo she has been so proactive and mostly just concerned. She wants her library, and she wants people to be happy, with it. So we go in, we turn everything in to Kelly on Friday, and then there's they'll deem it complete, and then it goes out for comments.
Well, at this point, then, I think if anybody has any concerns or ideas or anything in general, communicate with John and Lisa and myself, and we will try to get things moving as quickly as possible in between our meetings.
There'll be a lot more detail in the pre-application packet, or I mean in the site plan design review package than you're seeing here. Right.
I could certainly support some off-site mid-block street lights installed around there as being, an advantage for evening use.
And we are working with PGE right now. We've been doing on-site lighting, and then we will work with PGE to place any lights that are required.
Okay, well, does anybody else have any quick questions? We're going on 45 minutes here now.
I had quite a few comments on the traffic study, but apparently you don't want to go into all of them in detail at this time. But I'd be happy to meet with John or his staff to go over those. Just briefly, I think the ADA parking should be addressed in the traffic impact analysis rather than outside of it. And also, just briefly, I went to a couple presentations by Maureen Cole before the election, and people complained about the parking. And the fact that the impact analysis shows all these parking spaces here, I don't think the complaints are going to stop just because there's parking spaces on the street. I know the diagram on 16 purports to show the parking spaces within one block of the library. When somebody's walking to the library in the cold rain, they're more interested in how far it is from the parking spot to the front door, and not to the corner of the library property, which I think this shows.
Yeah, well, I think our city has several parking problems areas, but in my driving around town and trying to find parking spots, maybe I've just been hitting it lucky that I don't find it as big a problem as a lot of people perceive it to be. Downtown is one example. Sometimes you can't get within a block of the courthouse. Well, there's lots of places in Portland you can't get within a block of a courthouse and things like that. And the same thing with parking near the library. I've not had a problem finding a spot within a block of the library, but maybe I've just been lucky and haven't hit library peak hours, whatever that may be. So that's my perception anyway.
Just we've really tried to make the kind of the accessibility, either, whether it's ADA or it's moms with strollers, and an ADA accessible path to the library. It's been a big concern. And, I think given what we've got, we've done a pretty good job of that along 6th, So actually updating and building to, we're increasing the sidewalks to 10 feet in that corner. So I think it'll just be, as a whole, it'll be a lot more approachable. So we've opened up one whole side, it's basically, wide open for access and accessible entry, which does not exist now.
Bob brings up a good point. You take the Multnomah County Library main structure downtown. There's no off-street parking there to accommodate that building. It's pretty much walk in, and people have parked other places to get to it and for other reasons and things like that. I assume the same thing is going to happen here. The only thing that you got to deal with is residential neighborhood as opposed to being surrounded by commercial. So you're going to have to deal with that and the impact that's going to have. But in my judgment, overall, I think that design-wise, you've done a pretty decent job with working with what you have to work with, given the fact that the community said this is where we want our library to be. And so there's always unintended consequences. That's going to be perfect. And for golly sakes.
And if the surrounding area is all striped, there'd be more parking. Right now, somebody parks in there and you could get a Mini Cooper in there, but you can't get a
Right.
Mustang
right.
in
And
it.
it will be, yeah, I mean, at least surrounding us will, you know, on the library side, it'll all be striped.
Okay, well, thank you, John,
Thank
very much.
you. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
So,
We have a...
Chair, can I just, one thing, I'm not finding what I was hoping to find in terms of the schedule on the computer for that, but I do believe that they're going to have 120 days, and it doesn't seem like it's been that long since we had the pre-app on this.
Pre-app was
one.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So, Gary, I wouldn't mind seeing your thoughts on the latest version of the traffic analysis. That way we can turn that around with them pretty quick. But I think if this group has questions, maybe we can bring them back next meeting without too much of a problem.
Yeah.
And I do think there's another one where, you know, I'm not suggesting a group walk, but enough of us get out and about and can, you know, just do a little grid walk through that neighborhood, and there might be some off-site things that you feel would make a major difference.
Yeah. Okay, we have gone past our citizen comments, but we had a late comer, Brian Shaw, one of our new commissioners. Brian, did you have anything you wanted to speak to the group about?
I actually just wanted to come by and you know, I heard about all the great work you folks have been doing and wanted to say hello. And we look forward to working with you and staff over here and everything. So just want to say hello and keep up the good work. Okay.
Okay, well, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. Okay. We're now on item 5D, TAC 2015 goals. And you should have an attachment which Henry and John and Lisa and I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago and tried to figure out some of the things that we thought would be well to address for the next year. And we've got them in this attachment: the citywide safety campaign, the hospital master plan, the TriMet service changes, neighborhood speeding concerns and jurisdiction, design standards for railroad undercrossing, and 12th and 15th, that's for long-term down the line. And then some latest things were update on the Blue Heron master plan and Newell Creek Canyon presentation by Metro, and research Portland's new design for crosswalks. So those are the items that we have to possibly cover on our agendas for the next year. And if anybody has any additional things that they feel we should be addressing as a transportation committee, please let me or John know. And if anybody wants any further discussion about these items, we can spend some time now discussing them.
I've got one you might want to add to that list if you feel it's appropriate to do it. But we've got a piece of publicly owned property by the city north of the McDonald's. And the state of Oregon's been using that for the improvement of the McLaughlin there by the Oregon City Shopping Center. I think, frankly, that we as a city ought to retain the ownership of that rather than put it on the market, which it is now. And the reason I say that is because with the Blue Heron site scheduled for improvement on the public access, which is going to bring a lot of people into this community, that they're going to need a place to park. And if we get rid of that, I think we've cheating ourselves out of the potential for a parking area that we might shuttle people to the Blue Heron site, either up McLaughlin or down Main Street. And I just thought it'd be something that maybe this group might want to might want to discuss. I might be just blowing smoke, I don't know, but I think if we get rid of that as a community, I think we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot.
Well, I agree with you on that, Bob. That parking lot or open area is used so often for things like the Teddy Bear Parade, events down at Clackamas Park, and it's used a lot of times for fishermen for parking their trailers, their boat trailers there, because right now Oregon City essentially has only one boat ramp down by the Sportsman's Marine. The one at Clackamas Park is going to be very, very expensive to reconstruct. So that's probably going to be down the line a ways. But I agree that that property is so valuable for overflow parking for events. It should be saved, I think. I've run into some resistance from the city on that, but I still think it would be worthwhile pursuing.
You know, I think that if we as a group look at that thing and see one way or another, whatever you want to do, but communicate that to the commission, that we're thinking about this and give them the reasons why. We keep saying we want to create jobs in Oregon City and we're open for business. Well, that doesn't mean that we have to be building bricks and mortar all over the place. We just want to get people into the community and spend money. And people that come into that community, into this area down by Clackamas Park and park their vehicles, they're consumers. And they're bringing their money with them, and they're spending it here in Oregon City. If you build it, they will come. Well, we don't have to build it. I mean, it's already there. It's a place to park. You know, and down the road we might put a multi-level, 2 or 3 story public parking area. But if we don't have the space to do it, we're going to have to buy it somewhere. Well, we've already got it. So if we're open for business, we ought to be open for business in a wide spectrum of areas, not just building industrial parks and apartments and this and that, but give the public a place to come and recreate. And boy, that Clackamas Park is a jewel. It really is. They put a lot of stuff on down there. They really do. They bring a lot of people in. Pardon me?
Especially the geese.
Yeah, right.
You build a building, you're gonna block the view of the river.
Well, that's true. You know, really, if you build a commercial building 5 or 6 stories high, one of the last remaining views up the river's gone. And
So Bob and John, were you looking for like a motion that these 5 topics plus maybe the one Bob's talking about be incorporated in our goals in a draft form so that everybody could?
No, I don't think we can incorporate it in our goals because we can't establish our goals until the city commission establishes their goals, and they'll be working on that this coming weekend for their retreat.
So, I mean,
these can not be goals, but they can be subjects of our attention.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out how we move this ball forward, you know, rather than just.
Well, how about this? John, is there any of these items that will be coming up for immediate attention in, say, the next 3 months?
Well, yes, I think there will, given that we've got this TriMet service. We've got a TriMet topic in your packet as informational. TriMet's pretty active. I think the neighborhood speeding concerns are pretty regular. I think that citywide safety campaign, that's whether that's a city commission goal or not, that speaks to livability in the community. You know, so I think what John is suggesting could be done as a, you know, just a list of topics. I don't know if you want to call them goals or a list of subjects that we're going to make progress on in 2015. We could definitely have a motion for that, and just, you know, that way it tells staff a little bit more about what we should bring instead of kind of just bringing every topic. You know, we'll bring, you know, we'll focus our energies a little bit more on these topics and try and, you know, make them informed so that you can make as a committee you know, decisions, and we can make some real progress on them.
I'll make that a motion, and I'll add Bob's idea to that as topics for discussion and analysis. And that doesn't preclude somebody from adding something, you know, 2 months from now.
Right, yeah.
This would give us a start, And staff can start building those into regular meetings when there's time available.
I'll second the motion to add to our list of concerns the retention of the old piece of property that's left from the old sewer plant.
What's it called?
Been
The
moved
property
and
north of McDonald's. How's that?
That works.
Yeah, next to Highway 99.
New people don't know what that is.
I know.
You did that on purpose.
Actually, on that item there, I don't know a lot about that particular piece and the reasoning, but we'll probably just ask Eric Underwood to either provide us a memo or come talk to you. That'd probably be better.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've had motion and second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll call for a vote. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
In opposition? Abstain? Okay, it passed.
So,
Looks like I passed over your Public Works report, John, so go for it.
let's see. The one thing that we didn't cover, Bob, before, well, we should probably go back to it, that introduction of new TAC members, you introduced them, but there's some specific terms that I noticed as I was kind of reading that part of the packet that they'll each be here for, so I don't know if you want to acknowledge that or if you just...
Go ahead.
Okay, so the January 7th meeting, the City Commission made the following appointments. So John Anderson, you're in an at-large position for the term of January 15th to December 31st, 2017. So 3-year terms.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking they were shorter than that. Okay, so 3-year term. Thomas, you're the Chamber of Commerce representative, so thank you for being active in that group and joining us here too for the term of January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2017. Gary, you're in an at-large position for the term January 15th, 2015 to December 31st, 2017. Did I say that wrong? January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2017. So just clarifying that. Public Works report. Let's see. There's a couple topics there. Again, when we met with Bob and Henry, your chair and your vice chair, I guess I should say, it just became apparent that once you get a little bit of power, you like to stay in that position of power. And Bob kind of said, "Hey, I want to be on this for 2 years, not one." No, I think the idea was to just make a minor adjustment to the bylaws to allow for the term of chair and vice chair to last longer than a year. And I think that's a commitment to consistency and it's a little hard to kind of even get your momentum going in a year. So I think the only challenge to that was just these 3-year terms and whether or not somebody's in that position. I guess there may be, it's up to 2 years, right? So
Yes, right, that's what I suggested.
did we revise it that way? We'll serve
Okay,
for
yeah.
membership for a 2-year term. Oh, and then there's a
We removed the stipulation saying that they could only serve for 2 years.
right. No person shall serve as an officer in the same position for more than 2 consecutive years. So I think if you're in your second year and the chair and vice chair positions come up, that's a question because you've only got a year to serve. But you're still able to serve only a year, but you could serve up to 2 years. So that's a change that we thought would make sense. Anything else you wanted to talk about that, Bob? No? Okay.
Are you looking for action then? Can we amend these bylaws, or is that something council has to do?
And we can amend these bylaws.
So,
Yeah.
so I'd move we accept the drafted changes.
Could I ask a question on that? Since you were elected to a one-year term, does a two-year time for chairman begin at the next election or at the last election?
I was thinking about that myself, kind of. I think it would be up to the pleasure of the committee myself.
I think so too.
Yeah, that'd be cleaner, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So it would be an amended motion that would include,
Retroactive to January 1st of 2015.
Now, say that again.
The terms, the two-year term would be retroactive to January 1st, 2015.
Okay, all right.
When I first took
Okay, all right.
office.
Yeah. And we got a motion on the floor?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Yeah, we can, if we approve this way, then we can grandfather Bob in to that,
Don't point
being
to me,
eligible
point
to
to
that.
him.
That Bob.
That Bob.
If we do, I think we can recall.
So if we approve the first motion, I'd make a second motion, then that we would grandfather Bob in, and he would have an opportunity to serve 2 years.
I'll
Does the second agree
I'll
with that?
second that one.
Okay,
So
we
we-
have a motion and a second. Any further?
we have two
discussion?
motions.
We have two motions.
You need to vote on the first motion.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
First to accept these, and then secondly, to implement them,
okay.
making you
So we
eligible
have
for
a
that.
motion and a second for the first motion.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
John Anderson was the
I made
first
the motion.
motion. Bob Mahoney seconded.
right.
The first motion is to accept the recommendations that are in the staff report as written.
Any further discussion? Okay, let's have the vote. Anybody for?
Aye.
Against?
And I'd offer a second follow-up motion that Bob LaSalle be eligible for the new language, serving 2 years.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Carry a vote. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you, Gary, for keeping us out of hot water on that one. Let's see. I added the Lynn Avenue, Leland Myers corridor plan, thinking I was going to be able to get caught up with that project. We have had DKS working on. They've done an analysis of the intersection of Lynn, Leland, Warner Milne, Warner Parrott, and Central Point. So if you remember, we amended the corridor plan scope to include further analysis into that particular, specifically in that intersection. That work has been ongoing. I did get an email like Friday, I think, indicating that they had they were submitting their draft. Haven't had a chance to review it, so I'd really rather just defer this item until the next meeting, and we'll probably include that draft or a more complete version in your packet next time. Keep in mind that comes back before the City Commission in April. I can't remember if it's the first or second meeting in April, but so that's all I have.
Anybody else have anything they want to discuss? Jenna?
Did you want to?
I want something to say on a crosswalk at Barkley. When you come up there, you got people standing in the middle of that aisle at night, you don't see them. They're not illuminated. I don't know if the street lights aren't bright enough or the,
Yeah, but it's in Malala.
on Malala, yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
I know. I don't remember it being dark there, but
I come up there one day and one night, and all of a sudden there was people standing in that island. And you don't see them until you just ride on them. It seemed like the side lights are not lighting that middle part of the
Yeah.
street. I don't know if it needs a Cobra head up there to,
I see Martin making a note.
We'll take a look.
I know,
Barkley and
I just-
Malala.
It's the island in the middle of Malala at Barkley,
Yeah.
by the
Chevron and.
Chevron and the
Grocery outlet.
I want to call it the canned food store, but it's not.
Used to be.
The issue is
Grocery
that entire
liquidators.
corridor up to there, I think, has the decorative wrought iron
Yeah,
rather than the Cobra Head overhead, so you're probably not getting enough light dispersal there.
it's not getting into the middle of the,
I'll have to take a look at it.
I just noticed it one night, it was kind of a rainy night, and I come up through there,
Yeah.
and I saw them, and I stopped real quick, but I would have went by them, but I didn't, at the time, I couldn't tell them they were facing or away from it.
They're in an island.
They're an island,
Drive you nuts.
yeah.
Well, that's the intent of the island, is the safe harborage, refuge.
Okay, as chair of the committee, I'm going to, in the future, try to enforce the 3-minute rule for our guest speakers. It's always been in effect. I want to try to keep to that. I'll give them a little bit of extra time if they need it, but not a whole lot more, so we can keep our meetings length at a reasonable time. And then we talked about how much time we would give guest speakers, and we figured we would tell them they have 10 minutes, which will probably turn into 20 minutes, and then 10 or 15 minutes of questions, interaction amongst ourselves with the guest speakers. I want to try to keep it in a reasonable time. We all have our private lives, and some of us sit on multiple committees, so John, I don't know how many times you get to go home at night, but you're in a lot of different places in the evenings. So anyway, that's my intention. I'll do my best to try to keep the meetings under control. At that point, this meeting is adjourned.